So welcome back for part two. This is the Game of Life from 1963 by Neville. And then he does give a warning, as I explained before, with the habit of complaining. He goes there's a positive and a negative side of this game. You know, you could be in the habits of feeling sorry for yourself and constant complaining, or yeah, cursing your kings and rich people in your world. You could be in that habit. And Lord knows I've been in that habit for a long time. And it could take some time to break that habit. But really, the breaking, I've always seen habit as a habit of acceptance. What am I accepting? So I start to habitually accept new things. That's how I've always seen habit. So again, all the work that I've ever noticed from Neville's teachings is that it's actually always a more freeing approach. That's how I've always seen this. Is that when you actually start to um, practice it, it's always more and more freeing. The only real discipline is when he speaks about those areas where you want to add sensory vividness, or you want to imagine yourself right into the act, or you want to participate and have intensity. Those are more disciplines, but it should always free you. It should always be something freeing. It should always be something moving. It should always be not stagnation, but moving in inner movement into the positions you want to be in that actually free you. That is what I've always seen. And then he goes on to speak about the story of he goes on to say, like, when you imagine these things and they start to happen in your world, you internally thank the being within you that presented you in this case, this woman imagined flowers, not just any, a huge bouquet of roses, and she ended up just receiving. She wanted to try it out, and she tried it on a small scale, and she received these roses, and she thanked the being within her. Neville told her, thank the being within that presented you the roses, because it's sort of like although you can thank the person for doing it, of course, you also want to thank the being within you, because that's really the one who did it all. And so there is no other. There's no other to go to but the one within you. And he goes on to say how this being cannot be mocked. Remember, as I said in the beginning of this video, it's the referee of life. Your imagination knows what you're thinking. You know what you're thinking. You know what you're imagining. It records it, in a sense. But don't be afraid. Just change it. Never be afraid of this game. Even if you're playing it wrong, even if you've been a pretty bad player, you can learn to get better. You just need more practice. And it's really just remaining loyal to what you've imagined. And he goes on to say there's this certain moment that you might realize in your life where you are applying this law to the same goal with somebody else. He goes, don't worry about that. Just keep remaining loyal to what you've imagined. So it's really the game. The game feels stupid, right? It feels almost stupid because you're like, I have to just, regardless of what someone else wants, I'm going to keep remaining faithful to what I want, even if it's a similar goal. Sort of he goes, imagine that they have it too. Is there is you won't be robbed. Don't feel you'll be robbed if you practice this law. Just continue casting your bread upon waters. Let go of cursing people. You don't need to complain about the things that they have, and you don't need to continue doing that if you want to be an effective player. And for some time in my world, although Neville says we're always playing no matter what, and we are, I always felt I was just a bench warmer. I always felt I just sat at the benches and watched other people play this life. I always felt that other people were just either better than me at playing it, but not even just that. I felt like I didn't have almost that I wasn't allowed to play. I had to sit back and watch other people live life and play life, and I was just on the sidelines, just watching, just an observer. And I was okay with it at one point, but then I didn't like it anymore. I wanted to play, and the way to play is to actually assume you are the thing you want to be. That's how you do it. That's the game. Assume you are, and let it sort of appear in your world, and assume that they are, and let it appear in their world. So complaining is not enough. I must actually replace my complaining with what I want to have. I must change my mental activity inside, my imaginal activity. And then he goes on to say that, like, every time he's caught the mood of what he wanted, it seems to work for him. He says, I just ask myself this question, what would the feeling be like were it true? He says, well, you toy with that idea, you play with it for a while, and then all of a sudden the mood takes upon you. You keep that mood, just stay in that mood. So really, it's an investigation. What would it feel like? Were it true? Again, were it true? Now, we're not trying to make things true by this question. We're asking ourselves. We're communing with ourselves. If you see a lot of the recent artwork in these videos, you'll see two people communion with each other, and there's an egg. Well, the egg for me just represents consciousness, and but it's really a communion within oneself. They're both the same person. That's how I've always seen it. So you almost want to commune with yourself and ask yourself the feeling, or the question, what would the feeling be like were it true? And you just toy with it. Just entertain yourself with the idea. It shouldn't be a stressor. Well, what if it was? What would it be like? Wouldn't it be nice? How would it be nice? What does that mean? What does it mean for it to be nice? Well, I wouldn't have this pressure anymore. Remember when Neville says, when the pressures become upon you, it's the moment I become most aware of my pressures. That's when I die. That's when I yield. And I yield, as he says, with these questions. I yield to the what is only a dream by asking myself, what would it feel like were it true? So we're trying to make the dream be true. We're changing the dream into a reality within ourselves. He goes, and really you get that through play. You play with it. You toy with it. He says that he literally says you play with it for a while, and then all of a sudden the mood takes upon you. He says you keep that mood. Just stay in that mood. He promises you if you stay in that mood, it'll start to take upon, because life comes from consciousness. So if you move in consciousness, it must move in your reality. But if you stay in the same mood, stay in the same position, as I've done in the past, you stay in the complaining spot, and you have all the reasons to complain. You know your reasons are correct, but it doesn't get you what you want. You must move. Ask yourself, what would it be like were it true? Already true. What if you already were the thing? And then all of a sudden you moved. You might think that's stupid. Well, that denies my senses. That denies my reason. This is a dumb game. But just, we have to play it. We're all playing it anyways. I wouldn't be concerned as how stupid the game is. I would try to become a good player for yourself. And the game is against self. It's not against another. That's why it says don't curse the rich. Don't forget that. Make yourself the way you want to be. You'll start to become that idea. Because we make ourselves out of our own imagination. If I'm on a boat, then a boat I shall become. If I'm on a boat in my imagination is what I mean. Do you believe it? Do you live by that? Or are we giving lip service to this idea? Are we just saying imagination creates reality because it feels good to say it? Or are we actually believing it? And if we believe it, we will live upon it. We will do a good job at it. And really feel that. Feel that you really feel that you'll do a good job at this game. That you'll be a good player for yourself. And another way of saying the game is to change self, not the world. Leave the world alone and change self. It's another way of saying the game. It's really all he's saying. And I like that he says that just do it. He goes, just do it. Don't question it. Just change. Don't do it. Don't worry about it. Just do it. And keep that mood and stay in that mood. And that mood is always, for me, it's always a very freeing mood. It's always a mood that, see, it's interesting because Neville says you must be intense about it. You must have passion. And although I think that that's correct, I've noticed just from my own practice, every time I've ever asked myself the question, what would the feeling be like were it true? It always washes over me a deep sense of relief, a deep sense of the pressures being gone, a deep sense of change, a freedom, a deep sense of stillness, stability, composure. It always seems to bring that mood within me, and I keep that mood. That's the mood I keep. But if that's what he means by passion, then I guess I have that same passion. But I've always felt intensity and passion meant more like the word suggests, intensity and passion. For me, this is more like calming and peaceful. Although it's an intense piece, it is intense. I've never been like fired up about it. It's always sort of soothed me, if anything. And he speaks a lot about relief as well. So I don't know exactly the word intensity and what we mean in the context of it, but just from my own experience, just because there are many people, we're all very similar, right? We're people. We might have a very similar idea. Is when you ask yourself, what if something were true that is otherwise causing you many, many pressures? You would feel relief. You would feel freedom. You would feel composure. You feel composed. You wouldn't feel out of control. You would feel in control. And so I'm going to end that one here. And I suggest you read this, this lecture. I'll put it in the description. I'm going to try to put sometimes the lectures aren't in the, online, the ones that I read. Sometimes they're in books. But what I'll try to do is post them on archive.org. I made an account there. And then from there, you'll be able to download it and read it there. you can download as a PDF for yourself. So I'm going to try to do that for every single lecture, where you have it as well for you to read and do your own reading and see what you find out of these lectures that you take away. I just try to take away simple points from them that just struck me. But there's a lot of mystical works involved that are woven in that I want to talk about in the future as well. But again, I want to just notify everybody. I also do live talking as well for members, for the members channel. So if that interests you, I'd love to see you there. And again, thank you guys for listening.